Hello, and welcome to the 11th Act4Share discussion group. Today's panel of over 60s are talking about privacy. Privacy, or the lack of it, is a hot topic in today's world. Changes in communication technology and global politics, as well as the rise of social media, have brought issues of privacy into sharp focus. How have these upheavals affected younger and older citizens? Are these social and political developments one of the drivers of generational isolation? For today's seniors, privacy used to be a matter of net curtains and the confessional box. Personal privacy was taken for granted, perhaps naively. Events over the last 2 decades have somewhat undermined this faith. Recent revelations of the extent of state surveillance, coupled with the rise of CCTV installation in the UK, suggest that personal privacy is fast becoming an illusion. On the other hand, these years have also seen an increase in access to public and state data with the introduction of freedom of information legislation. So perhaps, in theory, the system balances out. How do younger citizens feel about privacy? Does it mean anything more than the settings on their social media accounts? To older observers, it seems as if the line between personal and public is disappearing, with unforeseen consequences for social relations and issues of personal identity. Is this just fear of the unknown? After all, it could be argued that mass communication brings undreamt of opportunity for social and cultural exchange and an increase in mutual understanding. In fact, is privacy a realistic or desirable expectation anymore? And should we all accept that the right to privacy no longer applies? This might prove harder for the older generation. On the other hand, the older generation can also benefit greatly from the increased opportunities for communication and exchange. Let's see what the panel think.
I became very conscious of invasion of my privacy, I think, the other day when I was actually using my email. And while I was on my email, I actually wanted to include some information on the message I was sending. So I had my email open, and then I opened a search engine, looked for the information I wanted, put it into the email, sent it off. That was fine. Did not remember anything about it. The next time I put my email, all the adverts that was on the page of my email was related to the search I did the day before. So somewhere in there, those keystrokes was captured of the search I did, and then immediately was obviously, it was sent to an addict who then was targeting me for adverts related to that. And I don't know why, but that made me extremely angry because, I knew it was going on, but that just brought it home to me, and it just made me so angry. It's the covertness of it, I think, that it's just happening without you thinking.
My attitude to privacy has actually, in a way, subtly changed since I moved to Waterloo, funnily enough, because before that I believed that one did have privacy, but there were some things in your life that weren't generally known and to which people didn't have regular access. But unfortunately, I moved to a street which had MI5 at the end of it, MI6, sorry, at the end of it, in a large tower block. And although we weren't supposed to know about it, it was kind of fairly obvious that your phone was being tapped and hacked. And that if you commented down the phone about this to your friends when they said there seemed to be a lot of noise on the line, your telephone would be turned off for about 24 or 48 hours, and you kind of got pissed off with it. But you did develop the attitude that you don't have any privacy, that people do know everything about you, and you develop a mental defensiveness against it. It's all rather sad because people should be able to feel that they have a degree of personal privacy.
As a lifelong dissenter, what I strongly object to is that what they do when they say we're going to clamp down on terrorism is they clamp down on all dissent and on all opposition. And we know now the impact of this. If you're a trade unionist, you weren't going to get a job working in construction in the Olympics. That you have organisations that spend their time now telling employers these people, if they stand up for their rights, are likely to be a problem employee, so don't employ them. And therefore what we've got is we've got a hidden corporate police state whose aim is to ensure that the 1% can get away with it, because the 99% become increasingly worried that if everything they're doing is listened to, they shouldn't really be doing anything. An increasing number of people are put off by that, from raising their voice, having alternative positions.
But there's a point that Donald made earlier about, what is our protectors or elected protectors doing about this, and nothing, because they love the information. They're the ones who facilitated the link, the link between your national insurance number, your passport. All of that is linked from birth, from your birth. And they press a button, can get any information they want to view from any services. So they have no interest.
Well, I think it's more than that. I think that there is underlying it, in a sense, a belief by the members of Parliament that they can cover their tracks better if people are being surveyed extensively by the security services. And that's underlying, and that's the kind of cowardice we could do without.
In the old days, you may not have had much privacy in your bedroom from your mother, but you did have the privacy of going off on your own. You didn't have the cameras, you didn't have the surveillance, you didn't have the internet watching. And from my perspective, the book 1984, which was back in the 60s and 70s, a science fiction work of warning, has now become the reality for an awful lot of people. We seem to be under permanent surveillance.
Just a very little example. Has anyone seen the story about the TVs? That now there's a new generation of televisions which you speak to, which kind of listen to you. And there's recently been a thing saying you've got to be careful what you do in front of your TV. It might not be switched on, but it's always there listening to what's happening.
Oh my God.
And so don't say certain things, don't do certain activities in front, because the people at Samsung are actually there monitoring what you're doing. So it is actually like the telescreen, which is what you were talking about in 1984, where it's not just passive, it's active, and it's looking back at you.
I think personal privacy between individuals living in the same house is probably about the same as it used to be. If I think of the house I share now with my lodgers and the houses I used to share when I was young, what has changed is public civil liberties, of course. And I think there's been a general tendency by government to want to know more and more and to intrude more and more, and that Parliament has failed to restrain it.
And I would remind people that we have more cameras per square mile and per head of population in Britain than anywhere else in the world. And in terms of the intrusion of the state through such agencies as GCHQ over all of our communication, phone, email, internet, not only do we have some of the least controls in the world, but we actually have, even those controls are regularly abused with no oversight whatsoever.
I think it's wrong to assume that we weren't being monitored very closely.
Oh, we were.
15 years ago, because we were. It's just that the electronic revolution has just increased the possibilities of doing that, Yeah. But it also increases the possibilities of everybody to do that. It's not just the goodies or the baddies. Everyone's potential to kind of invade other people's privacy and have information and data about them. Everybody's ability to do that's increased.
Yes, and I when I got my smartphone, my daughter helped me set it up, and the first thing it said was to use all of the facilities, you have to allow Google and Microsoft access. So I naively pressed the button of access, which means that now they know everything that I do. And as you say, your adverts move by whatever you look for. Mm-hmm. So at the moment I'm trying to get another house. I've got nothing but inundation from Rightmove and Prime Location and all of the others. If you've got a problem with to do with age, you suddenly get inundated with age ones.
I think it used to go on, and I think also
I never said it didn't go on.
More dangerously than that, I think
people didn't realise it was going on. People were much more innocent and much more naive. They actually thought that the state was kind of nice and looking after them and protecting them. So I think, the increase of information that people have got these days, it has made people a lot more cynical about everybody's motives and everybody's intentions.
Our politicians and our political caste are part of the problem, they're not part of the solution.
The irony, of course, of all this is that it's also the anniversary of Magna Carta in 1250.
But, yes, again, let's see what our younger generation
I think
about
it would be
this.
interesting to hear what people growing up now think about it. Yeah.